Okay, so I have with me again today Dr. Elena Seranova, who's appeared on my channel before in discussions about NMN and in particular her company NMN Bio. Now today we're going to go a little bit deeper. It's going to be a deeper dive into what NAD biology is, how it's connected to things like autophagy. We're also just going to get a bit of a better understanding as well of Elena's background, and we'll cover a few more really helpful, useful questions for anybody watching this channel that is also looking to, well, if they know anything about NAD, look to boost their NAD levels, but also just in perhaps a broader scope, just look at ways and methods and practices to improve their longevity, improve their overall health. We're going to cover quite a few subjects today, and I'm looking forward to this chat. So, Elena, I wonder, could we start with you? Could you introduce yourself again? Perhaps let us know a little bit more about your background, your studies, and
Absolutely.
then we'll flow with a few more other questions.
Okay. So thanks for having me back. It's a pleasure, and I'm really happy to be having those conversations with you, because I think that it's quite important to be informing the broad audience about health benefits, but also evidence-based health benefits that we can obtain by either supplementing with different vitamins and supplements, or also by lifestyle changes. And we're going to talk about this a bit later. So yeah, my background, so I'm an interdisciplinary scientist, and I was always fascinated by science. And that's the reason why I first majored in psychology. And then I opened my first business, which was a private practice. And then I continued with my studies. So I did a master's degree in translational neuroscience, which is basically genetics and neuroscience, at the University of Sheffield in the UK. I then co-founded a biotech startup, and I got even more fascinated by the world of biotech and science and drug discovery as well. So I decided to go back to academia. I was basically in and out of academia for the past decade or so, more than a decade now. And I did my PhD in stem cell biology, and the focus of my research project was the molecular pathway called autophagy, which is basically the mechanism by which the cells are clearing up any toxins, unwanted organelles, such as damaged mitochondria, or just aggregate proteins that are floating around and they are no use to the cell anymore. And this pathway is very important for multiple cellular functions. And I really got even more into biomedical research during this time. And now, after finishing my PhD last year, I founded NMN Bio, which at the moment is offering anti-aging supplements, with NMN being our first product, and a couple more coming later this year, for which we're really excited about. And from there, the sky is the limit, and hopefully we'll start doing our own proprietary research very, very soon.
Now that last bit is very exciting, actually, because
Absolutely.
I think when you're driven by this, and I talk about it a lot on my channel, when you're driven by the passion, which you clearly are, and then if you apply that passion to research, then it stands to reason, given your background, given your knowledge, your intelligence, that you're likely to come up with some very interesting ideas, perhaps the discovery of a new molecule, maybe a new
This
NAD
would be a
boosting
dream
molecule.
coming true. Absolutely. I would love to do that. And I actually put a post on my social media yesterday, where, so basically, yesterday morning I actually went back to the lab, because so there's another PhD student there, and she's working on finishing up basically my first author paper, and we will basically submit it within the next month or two. So this is very exciting. And then finally, maybe later this year, Dave, we will be able to have another chat about my paper. And I'm probably saying this all the time when I'm doing interviews, that, oh, I'm so
mentioned it to me
sorry.
a few times.
Yeah, I'm building the suspense.
I know exactly. Yeah, well, this is it. We are all waiting in anticipation for this.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, then yesterday I went to the lab in the morning and I was actually helping the other PhD student with the measurement of NAD and NADH, which was pretty cool because this is an assay that I developed in the lab and I kind of standardized in the cellular platforms that we were working with.
Okay, so now you've touched on that subject of NAD. Let's have, if we could, from you, a explanation as to what this really is.
Okay, so NAD is the nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. It's a very important coenzyme that is implicated in over basically 300 reactions in the cell. So you can understand that is a very crucial evolutionary conserved molecule, and it serves as a substrate for different kind of enzymes. So it serves as a substrate for the sirtuin genes that some of your audience might have heard of. It's the so-called longevity genes because they're basically regulating many vital functions such as DNA repair and epigenetic regulation of genes in different tissues. So this has to do with which genes will be turned on and off in certain tissues. So this is a very important function, and it is needed to preserve cellular identity and healthy function in the cell. And they also affect how our mitochondria work, how much mitochondria are being produced, so the so-called mitochondrial biogenesis. So a very important set of genes, also evolutionary conserved from yeast to primates, which only shows that, you know, what they do must be really, really cool. And then NAD is also being served as a substrate for other enzymes such as PARPs and CD38. So PARPs is another class of enzymes that are being activated when there is an increased DNA damage and so on. And also CD38 is another enzyme that is being activated with inflammaging. So the inflammation that we have going on in the body when we're getting old. So, you know, you have inflammation going on in your joints and so on. So very important molecule, and it's actually related to autophagy as well. And this is how I came up, you know, with what I do now, is because my research kind of led me to this, and we found something very interesting, a very interesting link between NAD pools and autophagy.
I have a question for you. After reading, I think his name was Professor Peters, on dirty genes. And I now have, and it's a great book. And I now obviously have a slightly better understanding of genes, but also the understanding that we are all born with what he describes as dirty genes. So genes that could lay dormant for a period of time, but perhaps with heightened stress, some kind of event that really shocks your system, these dirty genes can suddenly become apparent and cause illness, etc., etc. So by boosting your NAD, is there a connection there? Could you therefore help to prevent those dirty genes from ever affecting you physiologically?
That's a very interesting question. I haven't read the book, I must say, but I think that I can reply to your question anyway. So when you do have enough amount of NAD in order for the sirtuins to consume it and to do their work in terms of the epigenetic regulation, so what they basically tightly regulate what is being switched on and off. And sometimes the reason why we get sick is because this regulation is not enough. So it's not that, so it's basically the sirtuins that would do all the work to make sure that all the cellular functions are being preserved and maintained as they should. And this is, so it's very interesting how you asked this, because this also has to do with the fact that as we age, and maybe that we do see a paradigm shift at the moment where before we did have a lot of people thinking that aging is just something inevitable, but now more and more researchers come out and say that, look, aging is actually a disease, and they are looking into ways to treat this disease and to see how they can unlock different mechanisms that would be beneficial to treat aging as it would be a disease. And this relates to what you asked, because as you said, you might be living your whole life like a normal life, and then at some point you will get struck by a certain nasty disease, and you wouldn't know where it came from. And what happens actually is that if you see the top 4 killer diseases that we have at the moment, which is neurodegeneration, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and cancer, the highest risk for all of them is actually your age. It's aging. So everything, the major killer diseases, they're being driven by aging. And this is mind-blowing to me because, so far we were just putting a bunch of money into research for those diseases instead of actually having a reductionist approach and saying, look, how can we actually have an intervention where we do maintain all of the cellular functions at such level where there is no appearance of those diseases? And I think this is this should cover your answer. Although, as I said, I actually haven't read this book, but it's an interesting suggestion. So I'll definitely have a look, and maybe in our next interview we can actually discuss this in more detail.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I mean, he certainly has an interesting protocol that he says can clean up these dirty genes.
Okay.
But anyway, okay, so you've created NMN Bio whilst also continuing your research, continuing as a scientist. I'm guessing you're going to have this dual career, really, as an entrepreneur as well as a researcher scientist. But what was the real reason behind creating NMN Bio?
There were a couple of reasons, and actually after my visit in the lab yesterday, I realized that there is another underlying reason for me funding NMN Bio. So as I said, I actually really enjoyed my day yesterday because I haven't touched the pipette for a few months, and I was back in the lab yesterday pipetting for a few hours, and it was really, really cool. And what I realized is that, so after my startup, when I joined my PhD program, I realized how things are different in academia, and because basically, different students like master students and PhD students, this might sound bad, but they're kind of being used as cheap labor in academia because, they're just getting a very small stipendship, or for master students, they're not getting any stipendship at all. And then, they spend a lot of time in the lab pipetting their life away. And what I realized is that in order for your research to advance, because I've visited other labs where that have more automation, for example, and where the workflow is much, much better, is that in order for your research to really advance, and in order for you to make some breakthroughs in your field, you need to have a very good infrastructure. And this comes with a lot of automation. So, instead of doing cell culture for 8 hours, you can, even with very sophisticated cell types, such as human embryonic stem cells, or cells that you would differentiate from stem cells. So for instance, nowadays we can make neurons out of stem cells, or we can make liver cells out of stem cells. So cell types that
neurons, that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what I've done in the lab as well. So I have previously produced human embryonic stem cell derived neurons in the lab, which means that I was able to test different autophagy enhancers in a dish with human neurons, which makes it very physiologically relevant. But anyway, my point is that even with those cell types that need a lot of care and a lot of feeding, and they basically require you to spend hours and hours every day to just maintain them, there is already automation out there that can automate the whole process. So for instance, there is a £500,000 machine that you can put in a room, and it will grow your stem cells. It will differentiate them itself. And this is mind-blowing, right? But most labs in academia don't have this kind of technology. So back to NMN Bio though. So the first reason why I founded NMN Bio is because I wanted to have a high quality product for me and my family, and I wanted to know that it's actually clean. So that's actually reason number one. Okay, so this is the reason why we have a transparent supply chain. Reason number two is because looking into the future, I want to do my own proprietary research in my own way, and I want it to be automated. I want it to be fast. I want it to be robust. I don't want anyone to have mental breakdowns in the lab and burnouts and things like this.
Which
I
must
want to have.
happen a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually happening very, very often. And when I saw the statistics for PhD students that drop out in science or engineering, it's something like 25%, which means 1 in 4, which is crazy.
Yeah,
It shouldn't be like this. And
breath work.
yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I think the only reason I came through the other side of my PhD was because I had my previous experience of running different businesses, and this helped me a lot with the organizational skills and project management and so on. But I think that a lot of PhD students are actually struggling because there is not enough technology, not enough automation to help them. And in order to make an impact, because this is why I do everything I do. I don't mind spending years and years in university to study and to completely lose myself in the lab and to pipette my life away for years. If I can make an impact with what I do, that's the greatest reward for me. And I want to continue making an impact in an even more efficient way. And this is where NMN Bio goes. So now we are offering a very clear, very efficient product to our consumers. And then eventually we will start doing our own proprietary research, and it will all be top quality in terms of automation and so on. And we will be looking into different molecules, anti-aging molecules that will be related to either NAD biology or autophagy enhancement.
You've mentioned there autophagy, so let's go a bit deeper now with what that is. And I think it's one of these terminologies now that even the layman like me understands when I think of it in a sort of a very basic level. But it's one of these things I think everybody should understand and know about, not just because it helps to promote NMN Bio or even NMN itself, but also because of its connection with a whole load of other methods and practices.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
let's talk autophagy.
I have prepared a small presentation for today. So I actually told you before last week when we spoke that I will prepare a couple of slides, but I ended up preparing a few more because I kind of got carried away in the process. So I'll start sharing my screen, and hopefully you will enjoy the presentation.
Yeah, I'll let you know if I fall asleep.
I'll do my best to make the science language as simple as possible.
Yes.
So if you don't understand something, please let me know. Okay. So autophagy is a very interesting process in the cell, which is being which can be basically triggered by different pathways. So we do have different molecules such as rapamycin that can activate autophagy through mTOR, and we do have other molecules that are also acting through mTOR independent pathways. And I only have a couple of them here, but actually there is a lot of molecules out there. And actually this field is kind of gaining popularity with the supplement world right now. And this is also something.
What's mTOR?
So mTOR, mammalian target of rapamycin, it's basically a master regulator of many cellular processes, including growth and translation in the cell. And this mTOR is actually negatively regulates autophagy. And mTOR activity is also dependent on nutrient availability and starvation. So because one of the activators of autophagy is basically starvation. So we do have the formation of the so-called phagophore, which is a membrane that is basically engulfing different different cargo that needs to be degraded, such as mitochondria that are not functional anymore and don't serve the cell, or different lipids, or different aggregation from proteins and so on. So whatever the cell doesn't need, the phagophore will engulf it, and then it will become the so-called autophagosome. And basically the cargo will be trapped inside, and then it's a multi-step process that will fuse with a couple of other organelles, the late endosome first, to form the amphisome, and then it will also fuse with the lysosome, which is basically the stomach of the cell, which contains acidic hydrolases. And from there, the cargo that was previously in the autophagosome will be digested, and it will basically break down the different components of the autophagosome, and then what we'll have is those components will be recycled in the cell, and then they will be able to be utilized further for building new proteins and so on. So very important process. It's a catabolic process as well, and the reason why this process is so important for cellular homeostasis and cytoprotection is because it's implicated in so many diseases where we actually have seen that autophagy is impaired in different models, either cell models or animal models. And not only this, but we also have seen that we actually have, we can rescue the phenotype of these diseases with different molecules that are enhancing autophagy. So for instance, in neurodegenerative diseases where the phenotype is mostly dysfunctional mitochondria and aggregate proteins, which we see in Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, dementia, and so on, different neurodegenerative disorders have this phenotype of dysfunctional mitochondria and aggregate proteins. If we treat the cells with different autophagy drugs, we can actually see improvement in this in the cells. So this is very good to see. And then liver disease, myopathy, so on. And my research was mostly related to neurodegenerative diseases, but also infectious diseases. And I think this is very interesting to see because there's been a couple of reports out there last year that basically show that autophagy enhancement can also help combating COVID infection. So autophagy is basically digesting different different viruses or bacteria when they enter the cell as well. So this is.
Are you saying that if you had, say, long-term COVID, if you then practiced maybe long-term starvation, we shouldn't really call it that, but a bit of fasting maybe,
Mhm.
would
Yeah,
is there a high chance then that you could
clear out the infection, basically what you're saying. I'm not a medical doctor and this is not a medical advice, but in my opinion, I think that if you do practice fasting regularly, this can actually help, clearing up viral particles. But again, I'm not a medical doctor.
Of course,
So,
and it's not. Yeah, this is not advice, but it's an
yeah.
interesting topic, isn't it?
And what's interesting is that how it's been shown a few months ago that actually vitamin D helps with COVID infections. And if you
Yeah.
see here, we actually have papers out there that show that vitamin D3 can actually enhance the specialized arm of autophagy that is responsible for bacterial and viral clearance, which is called xenophagy. So very, very interesting there. I think there is a link. So what's going on with this process and why why things go wrong, basically? Because despite the fact that it is an evolutionary conserved process, we can see different mutations in different neurodegenerative diseases here in the slide. So for instance, there are mutations that can affect the phagophore formation, the phagophore and the autophagosome formation. And here I say this is from a review from our lab that has been published last year, which is actually quite extensive. It's quite a big review. So I would, and what we can do is we can put all of these links in the description of the video for people to have a look at. So we did see different mutations affecting different stages of autophagy in different neurodegenerative diseases. And not only that, but as I said, I previously have worked with embryonic, human embryonic stem cells and also induced pluripotent stem cells. So this is what the HIPSC model stand for here. So it's human-induced pluripotent stem cell models. And it's actually quite interesting that in some diseases, we might see a particular phenotype related to autophagy, and this phenotype would be different in the stem cell models than in other models with just immortalized cells and so on, because this only proves that, you know, the use case for having a more sophisticated cell culture in the lab is basically because you can see more physiologically relevant findings as you go. So autophagosome formation is just the beginning, because then we do have different autophagy receptors that actually recognize the cargo that is floating around, and they basically target for degradation. And we also see different mutations that are affecting this cargo recognition function in different diseases. In induced pluripotent stem cell models and non-induced pluripotent stem cell models. And then as well, the autophagosome maturation, which has to do with the fuse with the lysosome, for example. And we do see in different diseases that actually there is no, in some cases, there is no proper fuse of the autophagosome with the lysosome, and then this is why the cargo is not getting degraded. And then we end up with the same problem again, where we have things floating in the cell, and you know this basically can affect the cellular homeostasis. So why are we talking about autophagy today, and why is this important? Is because as we can see, when we do have increased autophagy, we do have a very nice cellular phenotype, which would obviously reflect in the overall health of the organism. And we do have reduced accumulation of toxic proteins. We do have improved removal of intracellular pathogens, as I said, and we do have a healthier immune system, and we do have reduced inflammatory responses, and so on. And we also have reduced cellular senescence. So, and autophagy has been shown to be protective against cancers as well, although there is a dual role of autophagy in cancer. So this is another subject, and we're not going to go into this. And all of this is obviously enhancing your longevity and your health span, because then if these overall functions are functioning better, obviously this leads to longevity. So this is what I was previously saying about the cellular homeostasis, because what we're seeing, and again, I'm so upset that I still cannot talk about my PhD research, because this is very relevant. But I'm not going to go into this. I'll just say that a very important function in the cell is to have a healthy population of mitochondria, so they could produce enough ATP for the cell to function. And when you have dysfunctional mitochondria floating around, you will have increased reactive oxygen species and so on. So it's not a very good situation to be in. And then this would lead to inflammation and so on. And what we're seeing is that actually autophagy can be suppressed through different kind of reactions, and then we basically will have different negative feedback loops in the cell, where you have, let's say, increased TROS production, reactive oxygen species production, and then there is, and then this might actually suppress autophagy and so on. And one of the ways autophagy is regulated is actually through the sirtuin genes, because sirtuin-1 in particular can influence different transcription factors such as FOXO and TFEB as well. And those are the transcription factors that are responsible for autophagy initiation. So if you don't have enough NAD in the body in order for your sirtuins to do their job well, and to activate autophagy as well, you will get the suppression of autophagy. And then you'll have all of the cellular dysfunctions. And then, of course, you will get the adverse side effects of aging and of senescence. So as you can see, autophagy and NAD are actually quite tightly connected.
And sorry, senescence, when we talk about senescent cells, we're talking about dead cells, are we?
Yeah. So we're talking about cells that are not replicating anymore. So this is the first hallmark of senescence. And then with this, because they're not replicating anymore, and also they're not able to, to maintain some vital cellular functions. So they're just dead cells sitting there, just having some sort of a signaling going on that is basically notifying the neighboring cells that they're senescent as well. And this turns more cells into zombie cells.
Oh, really?
So yeah, absolutely. And this is why it's actually quite important to be clearing up the senescent cells from your body every now and then. But I think that we'll mention this in a bit as well.
Yeah, brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you mentioned hormesis there on quite a regular basis. I'm sure most people know what it is, but effectively, it's kind of the healthy balance, isn't it? Everything in everything working properly.
Yes, absolutely. And what we're seeing, so in terms of NAD, there are different pathways that produce NAD. Basically, we do have the salvage pathway, we do have the de novo biosynthesis pathway through tryptophan, and we have the price handler pathway. And what's important in this graph, though, is to see that, as I previously said, we do have different NAD consuming enzymes. And with this, those enzymes are actually competing with each other for NAD consumption. And for instance, there is such a competition between CD38 and then Sirtuin-3. So CD38 is a marker that is prevalent in senescent cells as well. So it's we do have increased expression of CD38 as we age, and the reason behind this is because there is all this senescent signaling going on and so on. And Sirtuin-3, on the other hand, is responsible for mitochondrial biogenesis and so on. So when we do have this this decline in NAD, we usually see an increase in CD38. And what this paper showed, it was actually quite interesting that if they actually knock out CD38 from cells, the activity of Sirtuin-3 goes up by 2.5x, something like this, which is really interesting. So without putting any NAD precursors in the cell culture, you still have an increase in the Sirtuin-3 activity because you don't have CD38 anymore. So this shows that CD38 does regulate Sirtuin-3 activity in an NAD-dependent manner. And I don't have a slide for this, but there is another such loop between PARP2 and Sirtuin-1 as well. So those two are also competing for NAD consumption. So you see how we have this elegant interplay between those enzymes, and they all want to have some NAD. Quite interesting, in my opinion. And what we're seeing is that, so NMN is obviously an NAD precursor, which means that it's a molecule that is being converted into NAD, and actually it is being converted in one step. So this is very, very nice to see. And, previously we actually didn't know how NMN would work and how does it enter the cell, but recently they have discovered an NMN transporter. So we can see that NMN can penetrate the cells directly, and then it converts to NAD in one step.
And am I right in stating that NAD is not something that is or can be produced inside the body? It needs these precursors.
I mean, it is being produced. So if you see here, NAD can be produced by different pathways, but we always need some sort of either food or molecule in order to produce it. So for instance, tryptophan is an amino acid that is contained in different foods, and you can get some amount of it, but unfortunately I actually think that there is no such food that will have so much enough of a precursor in order to boost your NAD level significantly. So this is why we're taking the precursors. And also NAD can be produced in the lab as well, and you would be able to take it as a pill, but it actually has it's a very big molecule, so its bioavailability is quite low. So this is why why we're taking a precursor, because then it converts into NAD. And as you can see here, so what I was saying is that NMN is being converted to NAD in one step through NMN 1, 2, 3. So this is why, you know, it's there is an increased interest in the research community on NMN at the moment, because, you know, there are other precursors such as nicotinamide riboside, but actually it needs to convert to NMN first. So what we do in the lab is that we facilitate this process, and then we save your body one step basically. So you would have to just take the NMN and then it would convert into one step. And this is why NMN is usually more expensive than NR, because it's you know, it's a multi-step process that we need to go in the lab and do this. Although from what I'm seeing, because there is an increased interest in the market for NMN, we do see more and more manufacturers to be lowering this price, and hopefully this will be reflected in our prices quite soon as well. So, you know, it's definitely something that will happen very soon. So here, what we see is that once we administer NMN in mice, it is utilized to synthesize NAD, and then the phenotype of this mice is actually quite remarkable. So we do have the age-related body weight gain going down, because what usually happens is that our hormone production peaks at 25, right? So it's all downhill from there, and this also slows our metabolism. So in our 30s, our metabolism is already not working as it was working in our 20s, and then I think from there it's actually quite scary to see, but I think there is a 10% decline every decade, something like this, in our metabolism. So this is why we have people that might be slim their whole life, and then from there, you know, we just gain weight much easier. So this is being combated in mice that are being supplemented with NMN, and then we do have an increase in energy metabolism. We do have a more balanced insulin sensitivity, lipid metabolism as well. The gene expression changes, and we do have a better mitochondrial oxidative metabolism, and also there's been evidence for better eye function, bone density, and immune function. I think there is another paper showing better hearing as well. And so on. So what we've seen with NMN, and the reason why the first product for our company is NMN, is because we're seeing this robust results from multiple labs studying it in different models. So we have studies in mice, we have studies in flies and worms and so on, and also in different kind of cells. And the story, it all adds up. And we can see how efficient it is in those animal models. And this is why I got so fascinated with NMN, you know, when I was, when I came across it, because the results are just remarkable.
Is there a kind of a percentage indicator as to whenever something appears like this in mice, the percentage likelihood of it therefore occurring in humans is such and such?
There is no such thing, but also I must say that I actually haven't seen any other compound having such results. So yeah, absolutely. So, you know, because as a scientist, and I must have said this in the previous interview as well, I'm a supplement, you know, enthusiast for the past 15 years or so. So I really like taking different supplements, and I really like experimenting with, you know, different combinations and things like this. And usually when I come across a different supplement, what I do as a scientist is I go to the literature and I see the results. And, you know, someone was telling me the other day about spermidine, which is an autophagy enhancer, saying that, oh, Elena, have you had a look at spermidine? Maybe you should market it as well. And it looks like there is like so much publicity around this compound right now, and it might be the next NMN. And I said, well, no, it's not going to be the next NMN, because I've seen the data, and the data is not that impressive. And I'm not saying that spermidine doesn't work. or I won't bring it to the market eventually because it is an interesting molecule and so on. However, the effect that we're seeing with NMN, with different studies where the story keeps on building and building and everything adds up, this is quite hard to see with different compounds, and especially with natural compounds, because I mean, drug discovery is different, but those are all natural compounds, and NMN is also a natural compound, a vitamin B3 derivative. And this is why it's being marketed as a supplement.
Very, very interesting.
And then I think that I have one more slide. And this is a slide being taken from In Silico Medicine, which is a company that is doing, is having a proprietary AI platform that is being utilized for drug discovery, and particularly in the aging field. And the reason why I'm showing the slide is to show this intervention that can basically prevent the effects of aging that we have. And as I said, we do have the hormonal peak at 25, and then it's all downhill from there. So here in this graph, they kind of show the peak of performance at 30, 35. It's because, it depends on what you're looking at, basically, because, cognitive performance is probably peaking later and so on. Anyway, so let's say from 30 years old and onwards, you'd start having all of those issues. So first of all, you're experiencing the energetic decline and the decline in focus in some cases, especially with people that have a sedentary lifestyle and have a 9-to-5 job and they're sitting all day. Because if you don't exercise regularly, if you don't have a healthy lifestyle in general, if you don't sleep at certain times, and you don't have a healthy diet, in your 30s, this is where you'll start suffering, and this is where you'll start feeling the effects of this decline. And of course, then after 30, you do have the start of those chronic diseases kicking in as well. As I said, maybe someone will develop, cardiovascular disease and blood pressure, triglycerides, cholesterol is going up, and so on. So what we want to do is we want to intervene in order for the body to be maintained at healthy levels, and so we wouldn't increase the possibility of having all of those nasty aging diseases later on. Another reason why I included this slide is because now we are kind of at an era where we do have those advanced tools where we can actually speed up the research process. So one of them is obviously AI as well. Another one is the automation in the lab I was telling you about, and so on. So now we have sophisticated tools we can utilize for drug discovery in general, but specifically for drug discovery in the aging field. And I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see amazing breakthroughs that will help this field a lot, and will basically have the so-called longevity escape velocity, where we need less than a year of research in order to add up another year to our lives. And I think this is very, very exciting, because this will basically be a game changer. And this is where my presentation is about to end. So I hope that this was a comprehensive overview of why autophagy is so important and how it is related to NAD, and what we can do in order to boost both NAD and autophagy in our bodies.
It's a brilliant presentation, actually. That's really cool. Now, stem cells are obviously clearly very important to us. They run rampant, obviously, when we are in the womb. And from what I understand, they only run rampant typically in a low oxygen environment, which is why I'm hoping there might be some studies to do with intermittent hypoxia and the growth of stem cells, perhaps. Certainly amongst the breathwork community, there is this belief that does happen. It would be nice, actually, to do that truly in the lab. I don't know whether that would be possible, how it would be possible. I have no idea. But certainly one of the reasons why I do breathwork is for that potential idea that maybe, I can further enhance or grow stem cells. But again, is there a further connection, do you think, with boosting your NAD and stem cell production?
So basically, stem cell production is also something that is that can be that can be activated by the sirtuin genes, because what sirtuins do is they're basically a stress response of our body whenever the conditions get bad. So, for instance, when you're running and you're running out of breath as well, you're going into slight hypoxia. And the research says that if you're doing this for, let's say, 15 minutes a day, which I didn't know because I usually would do it for less. But if you're actually, if you're doing cardio and you're running out of breath for about 15 minutes, this means that your body goes into hypoxia. And this is an activation signal for your sirtuins to start working and saying, look, we are in conditions that are actually quite stressful right now. The environment is quite stressful. So we don't know what's going to happen next. And we need to preserve ourselves. And for this reason, they start regulating they start activating this epigenetic regulation. And this is when the tissues basically start optimizing their function, because the body thinks that it's in danger. And this is the connection there with hypoxia and stem cells, and it's actually happening through sirtuins.
More reason why I'm going to be breath working again, of course.
Yeah.
Every day I'm obviously practicing with intermittent hypoxia. So let's then go back to autophagy. How can we further activate it naturally?
So there are different ways you can do this. So first of all, and the easiest one would be to fast for a certain period of time. And there are studies showing that autophagy can be activated after 20 hours of fasting or 24 hours of fasting and so on. And it really depends on, you know, how much longer you can go. But if you go for 36 hours of fasting, which for me personally is kind of impossible, so the longest I've done is 29 hours, I think, 30 hours, but it's very hard for me to go more than that because I have quite a high metabolism as well. When you are in this fasted state, autophagy is activated because the body thinks that, okay, there is a lack of nutrients, so we actually need to recycle our intracellular components. And then it activates the autophagy, and then you have all of this junk that is floating around in your cells being recycled through autophagy, and then you have this beneficial effect. So that's one. And then there might be some different molecules as well that activate autophagy, different supplements and so on. Although, to be honest, I haven't found one that is very efficient yet in humans, because again, you might be quite, you should be very careful when you translate research from, different cell types and animal models and so on. And, if there are no solid human studies, and unfortunately, until now, there were not enough human studies with autophagy enhancers, but hopefully this will change soon. And hopefully with NMN Bio, this is also something that we want to do, and we want to find very potent and tissue-specific autophagy regulators. And I think this will be quite interesting. And actually, we had kind of a breakthrough a couple of days ago looking at different compounds, and we are already preparing our first proprietary blend to be released to the market later in 2021. So stay tuned for this. Yeah.
That leads then really neatly on to what is next for NMN Bio. Can you tell us any more about maybe not that proprietary blend, but anything else that will be the next product? Any other ideas you've got in the pipeline?
Sure, absolutely. So the first product, the next product that we'll have in the market will be a special form of trans-resveratrol, because it's a molecule that is actually activated in autophagy as well through an mTOR independent pathway, but also it's an activator of sirtuins. And what we are seeing is that if you have high quality resveratrol with NMN and you combine those two, you actually have quite a good effect in terms of boosting your NAD levels, and this translates into increased energy and focus and so on. Again, usually in consumers. And I've researched, like the way I researched NMN, I have also researched resveratrol. And again, it's actually after looking into, you know, different suppliers of NMN, I realized how shaky this market is. And, you know, it's actually very, very hard to find a reliable supplier for any supplement. And, you know, once you see it, you can't unsee. This has been an eye opener for me personally as well. And I think that because this is a supplement that goes very well with NMN, this will be our next product, and there is already demand for it from different customers asking me about it. So this is really cool, and hopefully we'll have it in the market in a couple of months or 2-3 months probably. So this is coming very soon, and it will be in a special form that will be more bioavailable as well. So I found a supplier, and I actually placed an order for a custom design of the product. So this is very exciting, and I think that our customers will be very happy with the product. So this is the next one, and then from there, because what happens when you take NMN is that NMN actually utilizes the methyl groups in your body. And for this reason, in order to have more methyl groups, you might consider taking TMG, trimethylglycine. And again, as with all supplements that I've looked at, it's also hard to find a reliable supplier. So this will be the other product that we'll launch later in 2021, because we really want to target this kind of an NAD and sirtuin activation, basically, to have the optimal effect. And then after this, hopefully the proprietary blend will come as well. And this will be a very interesting product. And I think that, again, the customers will be very happy with it. And as we go, we also try to decrease our prices. So in terms of the first product that we already have in the market, in terms of our NMN, we actually already have decreased the prices, because we have released the 3-bottle bundles and the 6-bottle bundles that offer a discount on the original price. So if you would buy 1 bottle, it would be a higher price. And not only that, but we also launched a subscription service, and you can actually choose which bundle you would like to be delivered, or just 1 single bottle, and you still get a better price. So if you combine this with, you know, some custom discounts as well. So for instance, for your viewers, you know, we have provided a discount which is Evo Dave, that gets you 10% off, and you can combine this discount with the subscription service, or with the 3 or 6 bottle bundle, and you actually get a much nicer price that you would get, let's say, a couple of months ago. So I just wanted to put it out there, because we do understand that you know, the price of NMN might be a bit high. However, as a company, we're not competing on price, we're competing on quality, and this is always something that will be, you know, and that will be our main concern, because we want our product to be of top quality. However, we do facilitate, you know, a bit better prices at the moment, and hopefully, you know, soon we will be able to offer an even better price for our NMN as well.
Brilliant. And you know, I think most people, I'd like to think anyway, when a company appears on the market, it's still a young company. Yours is still young, really. That to a certain extent, do you understand that as a new business, it is a lot harder to compete with, say, a much larger organization when it comes to price? And so therefore, your choice over whether you would purchase that product is also going to come down to the quality of the product. It has to, especially when you're looking at supplementation. I would imagine there's a load of people out there that have taken supplements of other types, and then sort of realized a few years later on that actually those supplements were either a very, very poor quality, or, as you mentioned in another video, actually didn't have the supplement, the product inside the supplement at all. I think when it comes to supplementation, as you say, it is a bit of a shady area. There's lots of companies out there that are obviously purely profit driven. Of course, yours is a company that wants to make a profit, but it is worth pointing out that, and I know I'm sounding like I'm promoting your business now as a mean, but I'm not deliberately. It's really just a kind of a very rational point, that when it comes to any decision making, and the purchase of something that you, of course, want to check the quality of it, especially when it's going inside your body.
Absolutely. And I think that this is the reason why we always offer third-party testing certificates for all of our products and for each batch as well. And what we do is we really provide an extensive analysis of our supplements. So for instance, with the NMN, most companies would just provide something like a purity analysis and that's it, or purity analysis and heavy metals. What we do is we do the purity, the heavy metal analysis, and then we also check for microorganisms, which is very important. And I think that when when you have products that are coming from different countries and so on, it's super important to actually check this, because you never know what's in there. And then the other analysis that we do is actually the pH analysis. So NMN by itself, it's actually acidic. So the range of an adequate pH for NMN is between 2.8 and 3.1, something like this. And if you don't check this, so this is basically another purity check, because what you want to know is that the product is not diluted, not only by the purity test, which is usually being done by HPLC, but also you want a second confirmation that the product is what you think it is. And this is why we do the pH analysis. And a lot of companies don't bother, and it's actually mind-blowing to me how so many big companies don't bother. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So what we will continue doing is we will be testing each batch of our product for these parameters in order to ensure that our consumer gets the best quality. And as you said, yes, sometimes there are bigger companies out there that might be able to offer a better price. However, the quality is what you really want, and the cheaper doesn't mean the better. With every batch of product that we receive, we will send our sample to a UK laboratory that will do the third-party testing for us.
Yeah, brilliant. Perhaps as a last point or topic of conversation, what is it that you are now personally consuming as far as supplementation beyond NMN, if you are taking anything else? But I'm assuming you are, given already you've mentioned you've had 15 years of enthusiasm for supplementation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I do take my own NMN usually at 1 gram, and then I do take resveratrol probably every other day, or even like maybe 2-3 times a week. The TMG, trimethylglycine, and there is different evidence out there as to what is the best dosage for TMG to take. So some people say that it needs to be, let's say, 1 gram of NMN, 2 grams of TMG. So I usually take between 1,500 and 2,000, so 1.5 gram to 2 grams of TMG. Berberine is another supplement that I'm looking at the moment and I'm experimenting with, which is basically mimicking what metformin does, the drug metformin, which is a type 2 diabetes drug. And I think that, from anecdotal evidence, definitely my cravings have disappeared for sugar. It's already been significantly reduced with NMN, and now I can see that there is an even further reduction. So I haven't had a dessert for I don't know for how long. Quite interesting, and we would consider, finding a very good quality berberine for our customers in the near future as well. From there, some essential amino acids. So magnesium is something that I also take, either magnesium citrate or glycinate. So there are different kinds of magnesiums, and they all have their own role, things like that. So I take that before, a couple of hours before sleep or an hour before sleep. What else is there? Curcumin. Curcumin slash turmeric, which is an anti-inflammatory agent, basically quite an interesting compound. And I think, again, as we previously said in the presentation, with CD38 being increased and inflammation being increased in the body as you age, I think that this is a wonderful supplement to play with and to take as well after you're if you're 30 or older. Yeah. Let me think if there is anything else. I think that's pretty much it for now. I do take some hyaluronic acid and collagen as well, and also chondroitin and glucosamine at the moment. So I actually had a dental surgery over a month ago, and my bone is still healing. So this is why I'm taking those two supplements to aid with the healing as well. And in terms of detox, because I also had a lot of extra dental x-rays because of my surgery, so I actually looked into agents that can promote detoxification from heavy metals, because you do get heavy metals after an x-ray, and I had like 10 of them or something. So what I'm taking now is chlorella and also molybdenum, which is a really interesting supplement. And the molybdenum is actually coming with in an NAC supplement that I'm taking. So it's NAC plus molybdenum plus a couple of other things. Quite interesting.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of trying to, for me personally, I'm trying to see what my body needs at any given time, and from there, I'm just doing my research, and then I'm trying out different supplements.
Yeah, that is quite something, and in a way, yeah, that is it's almost that kind of idea of listening to your body, and the more you do that, the more you're going to get a feel for certain supplementation that you might need at the time.
Yeah.
For example, somebody might be interested in doing marathons. And the significant stress that puts on your body, I would imagine there's probably some suitable supplementation that you could take afterwards that would accelerate the healing process following, long-term endurance. In
Yeah.
fact, that is something I'm still exploring myself. Doing 8 hours of digging tends to have a heavy toll on my body, and I see it as very similar to the kind of toll that you take if you were to do an Ironman or something like that. You are putting a lot of stress on the body, and so I'm certainly exploring things that I could consume after the event to help with the healing process.
I think that glutamine could be quite useful for this. So yeah, glutamine is a very important amino acid for us, and you should definitely see if consuming glutamine after your
Right.
labor could help.
I will then. Yeah, I will. That's brilliant. Thank you. I was trying astaxanthin recently, but I noticed a couple of days ago that I was really feeling a bit off. And the only thing that's changed in my diet is the astaxanthin. It's a
Okay.
bit like when I was consuming MCT oil, and I think I overdosed on that anyway. But I mean, I think um, I decided not to put that in my coffee anymore because it definitely had a strange effect. And this is perhaps a last point to mention. With any kind of supplementation, what works for you isn't necessarily going to work for somebody else. What works for me isn't necessarily going to work for somebody else. You do have to figure this out yourself. You do have to create your own path. There'll be certain molecules, certain compounds, certain products that just don't agree with your body, with your gut biome, for example. One of the things I'm going to do, I don't know whether you've done this yet, is I'm going to do a complete analysis of my gut biome, and then have a better understanding of what sort of supplementation, what foods would be good for me. That would be another topic of conversation, I would imagine.
Yeah, I actually have done something like this before, actually a few years ago. It was quite interesting. And, it also found like a couple of intolerances, things like that. So quite an interesting analysis to do.
Yeah, like it. What a great chat. Thank you, Elena. That was
Absolutely.
really, really useful. I think for some people, that deep dive will be a really attractive point in this video. It of course does weigh heavily on the science side, but hopefully most people will have understood it. I think they will. I'm going to drop timestamps, so check out the timestamps below in the description, and you'll be able to click to various different headings in this wonderful conversation. So thank you, Elena. I've really appreciated having you on here again. I am, as you know, going to continue consuming NMN. For those watching, it is worth pointing this out. I am not paid by NMN Bio. I still don't know whether to put this video as a paid advertisement video. I did with the last one, but I'm not being paid as such. I am being provided with NMN by Elena very kindly. So I am one of her guinea pigs, you might say. And, and obviously The discount code EVODAVE will give you 10% discount on NMN Bio. It is an affiliate link, so I do get a very small kickback as well. So I'm just pointing all of these things out for complete transparency. But otherwise, again, thank you. Great.
Thank you so much, Dave.